Today we're going to be doing some technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, and NVIDIA. And I want you to stick around for the VIX because a lot of what we're saying with the VIX is actually happening right now. So stick around for that. But first, let's go into some data that we're going to get this week. All right, so not necessarily for tomorrow, but on Wednesday, we actually do have Fed Chair Powell talking at 4:35, and it is interesting that he is talking after the close. So we'll have to pay attention to that after the close on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, the real reason I think it's important that he's talking and we should pay attention to it is because on Thursday, we do get that GDP growth rate, and it is almost double from the previous, okay? So the consensus on this is 4.3 and 4.0. So it will be very interesting, and we'll want to pay attention to how the market reacts after receiving all of this data, especially after Fed Chair Powell talks on Wednesday. But now we can dip into markets, and the SPY here looks like we did actually get that curl down. So give yourself a thumbs up if you were subscribed for our previous videos, because overall, ever since we did get this closing up here below these moving averages, we've been stating that we're most likely going to test this low or even cut that low, come down and test the bottom of the Bollinger. And look, exactly where we dink off of is the little trend that we have here, which is this little wedge that seems to be forming. Whether this will be a continuation wedge to send us, further upside and give us that bull run into the end of the year, or whether we are going to see it break down from this level, we still have to pay attention, but it is a decent sign that we are starting to hold up at this level. The reason we just want to pay attention this week especially is because we do have some bullish things on the technical side setting up for us, right? We do have divergences down here. We have divergences on the MACD on a daily. We have divergence that's setting up right now on the RSI as well. So we have all these things going for us. And what I always say is we need some good news behind it. If you do see these divergences play out without that good news, it could just be some kind of pop to then, get us in some kind of bull trap in the future to then be ripped away from us. So we really want some good news. And I believe that that good news that we want will be some kind of Fed rate decision, some kind of pausing. You notice historically, when we do see some kind of pause in some kind of, hiking cycle, then we do see some upside for a while. And then that usually is followed by something breaking in the market. So I do still believe that if we do get that bull run, we have the potential for a lot more pain down the line. Qs, this is what we were talking about as well, right? We were talking about probably a test of this low or cutting just below it, but overall we're looking for the bottom of our continuation wedge here, if you will, on the Qs to be tested. And right now we are getting a reaction from that level. Now on the SPY, you didn't get that green bar, not that 85% chance the VIX was predicting. It was technically wrong, but we did get an attempt, right? We got an attempt and the Qs actually closed green. So this isn't the worst sign, but we do see that we are getting this big wick on a daily, right? So we could see sellers start to step in at these areas. And that's why I think it is very, important that we do get some good news behind these divergences so that those sellers, there's just not as many of them willing to sell if that good news comes out. Very similar to the SPY, we can see that we do have divergences, right? We have divergence here. We can pull up the RSI here, and we do have a divergence right there. Not the best drawing in the world, but hey, we have divergences there, and these can play out. Like I said, I'm just going to say it like a broken record. These could play out, but the overall thing is we want good news. We don't want this to play out and give us some kind of retest and then see that ripped away. We really want to see a sustainable bull run going into the end of the year, and then we can see what happens from there. So if we do not get that good news and we get some kind of pop, that could just be some kind of bull trap to then be ripped away from us later on. Apple here, we got to give ourselves another thumbs up. So thank you guys so much if you are subscribed and you found this stuff helpful, because overall, pretty much on Thursday, this is the bar that I was sick, but I told you guys on Wednesday that I was looking for a red closing bar in the purple zone to signal to me that we wanted to test the bottom. So if you were here for those weekend videos, you kind of knew that my take on this was we were going to test the bottom of this purple zone, and then I said we were also most likely going to cut that zone and come and try to test that 200, and that looks like what happened today. But notice we did not close. Again, we struggled to close outside of that purple zone. So in order to see further downside, right, we are going to need to see that closing bar come out of this zone and probably even cut underneath this 200 at this point. Right now, you don't necessarily have divergence from this level, but this is a level for the potential, higher low scenario to play out. And maybe we are looking at some kind of A, B, C to play out. Maybe we get that retest. If we get some good news, then you can look for a projection and a bull run into the end of the year with Apple. I want to be clear here on Apple. I think you can see from this, we did see that big recovery, right? But we've seen that a lot in the past 2 weeks, right? So if we just zoom back out, we can see that almost every single drop was followed by some kind of recovery, but all of these recoveries led to another drop, right? So I do still believe that there is a little bit more work to be done, barring some good news or something that comes out overnight. But I do believe that Apple does have the potential to try to break this level one more time, or possibly just, come down and test this level again, and then we can see some kind of 30-minute divergence. And maybe that's a signal that we are going to see some kind of, bounce in the next week or two. Tesla here, we were overall talking about how we did break out of this huge triangle, but I wanted you to just not be, 100% fearful, because we haven't lost this point of 207.42. Now, we were paying attention to this level just because it's held up as support, it's held as resistance, and it's in confluence, with some pretty good amount of buyers in that area. So it is good that we actually came below that and buyers were able to buy it back up. I do believe that if we do get a closing bar below this, we could be in some trouble. But right now, you're so far out of those Bollinger Bands that you may want to go reconnect with some of these moving averages before you see more downside. Overall, I'm really going to be paying attention to the SPY and the Qs, even when looking at other stocks, just because of all those divergences that are set up. And we just want to see how those play out. If those do start to play out and we get some good news, sure, Tesla reported some bad earnings, right? But if we do get some kind of pausing or something like that, that will be seen as good news. You're going to see those rates start to fall off, and we can see, Tesla start to do some work to gain back what it's lost. Now, what were we saying on Amazon was we were expecting a test of these lows in here, okay? And that looks like what we're getting right now, right? We're coming into those levels. We haven't necessarily made a move to touch the actual bottom, and you can see how tight these Bollinger Bands are getting before the earnings. So I do believe that earnings, that would be this Thursday, and we can see if that's actually after hours real quick. Yeah, so that'll be Thursday after hours. We actually could see some action for Amazon. Right now, you're not really seeing that. The Bollinger Bands are really tight at this point. If we do get some kind of hip fire move down or up before those earnings, just be ready, because that could be some kind of trap. Right now, I would like to see Amazon actually dip down a little bit lower just to go get those buyers before the earnings and be at a good price, right? If this is at a good price and the earnings come out good, then we can see a rip, and that actually will help out a lot of stocks, right? That'll help a lot of stocks. It'll signal to you that the consumer is still spending their money on Amazon. So it will make you kind of think that they are going to spend their money into the Christmas season. Possibly, Apple can see some kind of reaction if Amazon reports some good earnings on Thursday. You can see on Amazon, if we do get a little dip lower, we still have our divergences drawn up, right? So we did get a red bar, even though you have a green bar here on the price action, you actually have that crossing down here on the MACD. So we actually could see some potential, further selling. And on this channel, we do talk about how when you see that crossing on the daily, right, we do not start to take calls even on a green bar like this. Sure, if you're a seasoned day trader or something like that, you can actually, do this. But right now you're getting that red bar on the MACD, which just overall signals to me that the momentum to this is still to the downside, and we're going to need to see, most likely the earnings are going to be the thing that dictates whether Amazon goes up or down over the next couple months. On NVIDIA, we've been paying attention to this head and shoulders. I'm sure everyone's paying attention to it, and we did get a reaction around that level, so that actually did come to fruition. I probably should give you guys a thumbs up on this. Now, I do still, think there's potential for us to touch the actual neckline, really take out the stops down here, and then get that reaction. But we did get a good reaction today. 3.84% is nothing to shy away from. But the problem here is we do have all these moving averages, and you notice these shorter time frame moving averages are still angled pretty far down. So we could come up and touch that. Maybe we actually go get some kind of real, physical test of the actual neckline here, and then we can see what happens, possibly with Jerome Powell talking, possibly with Amazon earnings, if that can help NVIDIA out. If you weren't here for the weekend video, we were just talking about how, this thing could break down. If it does start to break down, right, we break down, we retest, and we break down again. Don't put too many eggs in this, 200 basket to hold up, because there's nothing holding you up in there. Overall, if we do see this type of thing happen, right, the retest start to play out, I would be paying attention to levels down around this like 315 to 310 area. Now the VIX for now, we can give ourselves a thumbs up. So give yourself a big pat on the back because we actually drew out that the VIX probably could come down, giving us some kind of green day. Now we didn't necessarily get that green day, but we attempted it and we did actually come down just like we were talking about. And then we started to buy back up. So I did say that we would potentially get some further selling in like to get us a little bit higher in the VIX. That did come off, right? It came off pretty dramatically. But you can see towards the end of the day, the fear hasn't fully left this market and we are buying back up with this wick. So overall, if we just look into, say, like a 2 hour or something like that, I would be paying attention to this little trend here. It seems to be pretty good, and we're holding above it right now. I do believe that we still have potential for one more push on the 2 hour, and then maybe we're able to set up some kind of little divergence here before, Jerome Powell talks, where we start to get some really meaningful earnings. I really think Amazon's going to be a very important earnings. So we just want to be paying attention to the VIX. And if we switch back over to the daily, what do we need in order for us to get some kind of bull run? We need to close below the 200 and the 50. So we need to see a closing bar below those. We are still above 20. I want to point that out to you, so we can still see some volatile moves. So until we actually see a closing below, down here, we're not going to see that bull run start to come. And then if you want to pay attention to what could happen in the crash, if you're worried about that happening right now, is we would have to see this 200 start to curl up, and we'd need this 50 to cross that 200. I've said that a few times, but it's just something that you guys really need to pay attention to. And when that does happen, we will start to see very dramatic selling. I'm not saying that it is going to happen. I overall don't believe that we're going to see that dramatic sell-off right now, but I do believe that that's coming in the future. I do actually think that we could see one more sell-off possibly tomorrow or even into Wednesday, and then we start to see this VIX drop off dramatically, closing below these bigger time frame moving averages. One thing that's good for the market is these yields are coming off, right? These yields are starting to come off, and we're seeing that there are divergences that are starting to almost confirm, right, on the RSI and the MACD. So if these do confirm and we see, further downside in these yields, sure, we need to pay attention to the 2-year and the 10-year, giving us that recession by uninverting. But, we don't have to have that happen for 6 to 18 months. So we could see this start to dip down to lower levels. And if they pause or something like that, then you're overall just like, okay, we could see that bull run into the end of the year. TLT, something that we probably could give ourselves a thumbs up for, but this level of 82.50 that I've been talking about for about a week or two is where I've seen TLT getting to. So it's awesome to see that actually happen today, right? Today we actually cut a tiny bit below that, and then we see some extreme buying up from there. So I do believe that if we see, some confirmation behind a lot of these moves with these yields and the TLT, we can see those yields start to really back off, right? So maybe that's a hint of what Jerome Powell will be talking about on Wednesday after the close, and we can pay attention to that. But we really want to pay attention to what he says and then see how the market reacts to the GDP data the next day, right? Because that is a big jump going from 2.1% growth to like 4% growth. That's going to be a huge jump, and that could really convince people, if that number comes in really high, that the Fed isn't necessarily done with their rate raises, right? So we really want to pay attention to that. But right now, I just wanted to tell you, hey, you got these divergences here. They're signaling to you that they're about to confirm. It looks like TLT is going to make a move higher over the next week or so. So the main takeaway for this video is we are hitting a lot of those levels that we've been talking about for about a week or so. So we can pay attention to those levels, but it seems like we don't necessarily have any information, or there's not enough price action to tell us that we're bottoming out here. We need to see what happens tomorrow, and we really need to pay attention to what Jerome Powell says after the close on Wednesday. So we're really going to pay attention to that and pay attention to that GDP growth. I just really hope you guys have all the luck in the world trading tomorrow, and I hope you guys have a good night. Peace.